Is there anything that you would impart on our listeners based on everything that you've learned over the years and where you're at even currently? If you had a nugget of knowledge, what would you leave them with?
Well, I mean, I think the main thing is you have to make sure that the rider is the one that's wanting to do this, right? There's a lot of parents that are out there that they want to do it, and you better just make sure before you start investing a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of money, that it's what the rider really wants, right? I see a lot of it out there these days where the parents want it more than the rider. That's a problem, if that rider is not waking up before you and talking to you about stuff about the track or about bikes or about whatever, you might want to reconsider what you're doing a little bit, right? Because I see a lot of it going on out there right now, and kind of reminds me of a story from a long time ago. I remember I had the kids out at a track that was near Joe Sutter's in Camarillo. It was a track where they had a wood cutting place. I think it was called Hagel Lumber track up there in the hills. And the kids were 65 riders at the time. And we were out there, we were already out there for maybe 2 hours, doing motos, doing riding. And along comes 2 pro riders, Billy Payne and another one, I can't remember what, RJ. And I remember they showed up, they rode for 35 minutes, 40 minutes, and they were packing up. And I remember asking them, hey, are you guys done? And they're like, yeah, we're going to the movies. And I remember them when they drove away, right? And I said, you see those 2 guys right there? You'll be beating those guys when you're probably 15 or 16 years old. And all of that kind of came to pass, right? At some point in time or another. But again, it's, there are parents out there that can finance it and fund it and do it all, but I think you better be clear on the fact that that's what your kid wants to do, right? Because it could be a lot of wasted money and energy and effort.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to say, and then unfortunately resentment is right behind it. And then you've obliterated the whole father-son, mom-daughter-son relationship, which is sad because then how many people do we know they don't have relationships with their parents anymore? So I agree with you. Go ahead, Derek.
I see it. I see it. The parents, they invest all this time. I see the moms, they're going to those training facilities and they're living there and sacrificing everything, right, to go do it. And I'm looking at I look at the kid and I'm like, that kid don't even want to be here. Kid's lazy. That kid don't want to do this, right?
Yep.
And it's just like, yeah, I could see how that could turn ugly in the future. It's like, I gave everything for you and did everything for you, and you didn't do it. You didn't make it. You didn't try, whatever it is, right? But you never asked the question, right? Did the kid really want to do it? And I know I've said this a couple of times, even for good pro riders, right? There's a lot of pro riders out there that, teams are investing lots of money and working on their starts, like crazy technology to get these guys to get starts. And I've asked them, I said, hey, have you talked to the rider? Are you sure the guy wants to get the start? He might not want to, right? He might not want the responsibility of leading that race, right? And I think you got to get that part clear from the get-go. Like I said, for me, when it was Mike, I never saw a guy so committed to doing it and wanting to be the best, right? It was the beginning of every conversation in the morning, and it was the last conversation in the evening. You know what I'm saying? And the only time that might have got altered in any way is maybe if he, spent a day or 2 off, right? Maybe at the girlfriend's house or whatever it was, which is now his wife, by the way.
Yep.
Then he would come back, and it took me a couple of days to get him going again, right? But typically, I would say 90% of the time, right? It was all he thought about.
What would you like to see changed within amateur motocross? And I actually, we think the sport's kind of headed this way with futures. I think that's a great addition to the sport. But What would you like to see if you could wave a magic wand? What would you like to see in American motocross change from your perspective on the amateur side of things?
Yeah, well, I'll probably make somebody mad with this for sure. I would definitely like to see the tracks not be in the middle of nowhere. I'd like to see more of an urban setting. I'd like to see the tracks smaller and more technical and in a city square. I'd like to see mostly electric, not gas. And I'd like to, kind of make it look and feel like an event, right? Like a supercross event, similar, but in a city square. Maybe you take over a park for the weekend or the week. I don't think that the racing needs to be a week long. I don't think it needs to be in the middle of nowhere. I think it hurts families to do that. I think there needs to be a shorter venue. I think there needs to be walking distance to restaurants and hotels and bars and where the public is around to see it. I think that that's where it needs to go, right? Like I said, I could miss the mark on this, but I think that the wives are happier with that. They can walk around in nice shoes and not be walking around in the dirt. And if they want to go over to the hotel for an hour, it's walking distance. I think it just would improve the whole entire amateur scene 1,000%.
I think that future vision is fantastic. We've discussed this a little bit. I mean, yeah, I actually, but if I could, we have talked a little bit about this, me and Rob, but I'm just not blown away, but blown away that somehow we can't work this into a collegiate sport. Like you could have a huge collegiate network and make it something that is, especially with electric, I see that being more feasible than ever. To me, that's just unbelievable. Like in any other sport, you go to college to become a pro. In our sport, you drop out of college to become a pro. And granted, you have a young window, but if we could get more awareness and whatnot, and just even if it wasn't at the pro level, but it was just like a collegiate activity, just like football and all these other activities are, I think that'd be great. And maybe that vision like you have, which is electric, which is coming, let's be clear, is definitely going to be an interesting future to say the least.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I kind of see that as the direction. I mean, I'm sure you've been out there. You guys have been out there to those events where you're out there for a week long, and I think it's hard on the families. I think it's hard on the kids. I think it's hard in general, and I think if those are shortened up, and you have shorter races and you have more intensity in trying to win on smaller tracks that are kind of almost like Supercross, right? I mean, let's be real. Supercross is 58-second lap times, right? Kind of a similar scenario, but more kind of outdoorsy and amateur style. And if you could have that kind of in an urban setting, like a downtown, city, in a city square, and you have people around, and you keep the walk, and the people that are walking around are in nice shoes, and they're on concrete, and it's clean, and they have access to restaurants, bars, etc. I think that's where the sport grows. Putting races in the middle of nowhere and making people sit out there for 5-6 days and no public basically comes to watch it. I can't see any value in that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, the value is all the promoter, right? The value is in who is the guard and who makes the money now, not the few. And that's not a negative. That's just how America evolved to where we got to. It is what it is. If you ran the sport the way it's run now, you would do the same thing,
I do think it's antiquated though.
I agree. I agree.
It's not the future.